Before Detroit became Motor City, before Henry Ford was a household name, a black man from a small town in Ohio built a car company of his own. He wasn't supposed to. The laws, the banks, and the country weren't built for him. But he did it anyway. His name was Charles Richard Patterson, born enslaved, armed with nothing but skill, grit, and the will to create something America said he couldn't. He would raise a son who turned that same determination into a dream that rolled on four wheels and defied the odds. This is the story of how a father's forge became a factory, how a black family built America's first automobile company, and how history almost buried their name. You're watching Black Business Files, where we uncover the hidden empires, the forgotten founders, and the true architects of black innovation. This is the Forgotten Car King, the C.R. Patterson story. Charles Richard Patterson was born in 1833 in Virginia, not into opportunity, but into bondage. Somewhere between the chains and the chaos of the Civil War, he made a break for it. By the time the war ended, he had disappeared into the rolling fields of Ohio, free, but not finished. In Greenfield, Ohio, one of the few racially mixed towns of the 1800s, Patterson learned blacksmithing. In a country built on segregation, he built with steel. He partnered with a white craftsman named J.P. Lowe, and together they made some of the finest horse-drawn carriages in the region. Wealthy farmers, merchants, and doctors traveled miles for Patterson's work. It wasn't just good, it was unbreakable. In 1893, Charles bought out his partner and renamed the company C.R. Patterson Sons, a black-owned carriage company, thriving just 30 years after slavery. That wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. The Pattersons were no longer just blacksmiths. They were businessmen. For nearly 2 decades, Charles built his legacy one carriage at a time, elegant, sturdy, and handcrafted with pride. By the early 1900s, his company offered more than 50 styles of carriages and wagons, selling across Ohio and nearby states. He became known not just as a craftsman, but as a respected businessman, proof that black excellence could thrive, even under Jim Crow. But time was changing. The sound of hooves on dirt roads was giving way to the sputter of engines and the smell of gasoline. Charles Patterson could sense the shift. The world he built was disappearing, and the next one would be powered by something entirely new. In 1910, after a lifetime of building from nothing, Charles Richard Patterson passed away. He left behind a successful carriage company and a legacy waiting for someone bold enough to reinvent it. That someone was his son, Frederick Douglass Patterson. Frederick had gone off to Ohio State University, one of the few black students there in the late 1800s. He'd spent years teaching at Wilberforce University, shaping young minds and coaching athletics, far from the forge his father had built. But when his father died, Frederick came home to Greenfield. He took over the family business and looked around at a world that no longer wanted carriages. He saw engines replacing horses and roads stretching farther than wagons could go. To most, that meant the end of the Patterson business. To Frederick, it meant a new beginning. He was determined to carry his father's name into the next century, not with a carriage, but with a car. At the dawn of the 1900s, there wasn't even a proper word for these strange new machines. They looked like carriages, just without horses. People called them horseless carriages. But as engines advanced, a new word emerged from France, automobile, meaning self-moving. By 1910, the automobile wasn't a novelty. It was a revolution, and Frederick Patterson was determined to join it. Before he built one, he learned from the inside out. C.R. Patterson Sons became one of the first black-owned auto repair businesses in America. They worked on Fords, Buicks, and Overlands. Every broken part became a teacher. Every sputtering motor, a classroom. Their workshop became an unofficial engineering school, one that no white university would have let them enter. By 1915, Frederick had learned enough to build his own, and when his first car rolled out of the shop, it wasn't just another machine. It was a statement. He called it the Patterson Greenfield. It sold for between $685 and $850, depending on the model. It came with a 4-cylinder engine producing around 22 to 30 horsepower, with a 108-inch wheelbase. It featured electric ignition and lighting, a full floating rear axle, cantilever springs, demountable rims, and even an optional convertible top that cost $62.50. Each one was handcrafted. It rode smoother, looked sharper, and lasted longer than the Ford Model T. But while Ford had thousands of men on his assembly line, Patterson had a handful of craftsmen. And while Ford's machines rolled out by the minute, Patterson's took weeks. In Greenfield, though, people knew. A Patterson wasn't just a car. It was proof. Proof that genius doesn't come from privilege, it comes from persistence. Before we go further, if stories like this move you, if you believe history shouldn't be forgotten, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and turn on that bell. Because Black Business Files is just getting started. We're bringing back the names that built, invented, and hustled when the world said they couldn't. Now, let's get back to Frederick Patterson. For all his genius, Frederick Patterson faced a problem no amount of innovation could fix: racism. Banks refused him loans. Dealerships wouldn't carry his cars. Suppliers overcharged or outright refused service when they realized he was black. He could design the car. He could build the car. He could sell the car. But he wasn't allowed to be the face of the car. So Frederick adapted. When he needed supplies or contracts, he sent a white salesman in his place. The white representative shook hands, closed the deal, and got the credit. But Patterson got the parts, and that was all that mattered. That was the quiet genius and the quiet humiliation of black business in the early 1900s. You could build the product, but you couldn't be seen selling it. Still, Frederick never stopped building. By the early 1920s, the auto industry was changing fast. Ford and General Motors had become titans, and small builders were getting crushed. So once again, Patterson pivoted. He shifted from manufacturing automobiles to producing bus and truck bodies. He stopped making engines and started focusing on design and craftsmanship. The company supplied school districts, transportation companies, and local governments across Ohio. The buses they built carried children, black and white, to schools across the state. Most of those passengers had no idea they were sitting inside a bus built by a black company, in a country that didn't even want to serve black customers. To help the business survive the times, Frederick renamed it the Greenfield Bus Body Company. And for a while, it worked. They stayed alive while other small builders folded. Frederick had built not one business but two, both born from resilience. In 1932, Frederick Douglass Patterson passed away. But his company didn't die with him. The Greenfield Bus Body Company kept running under new management, employing a small but dedicated team. Through the Great Depression, they kept building bus and truck bodies for towns and schools across the region. They survived 7 more years, long enough to see an industry reshape around them. By 1939, the last orders stopped coming. The big automakers had taken over the bus market. That year, after nearly half a century in business, the Greenfield Bus Body Company closed its doors for good. 46 years. From a blacksmith's forge to an automobile factory, one family's journey of skill, innovation, and defiance against the odds. When those final doors shut, they didn't just end a company. They ended a legacy that the world had never truly seen. For decades, the name Patterson disappeared. No books, no documentaries, no monuments. But history has a way of resurfacing what deserves to be remembered. Through old ledgers, advertisements, and oral history, researchers began piecing the story together. Eventually, the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture gave the Pattersons the recognition they always deserved. Their name now stands among America's great innovators, where it belongs. The Patterson story isn't just about cars, it's about courage. It's about how innovation is born in struggle, and how survival itself becomes an act of genius. Before Elon Musk, before Ford, before Detroit became an empire, a black man in Greenfield, Ohio was already engineering the future. The Patterson formula was simple: repair, learn, innovate, adapt. That's what kept them alive, through slavery, through segregation, through silence. C.R. Patterson & Sons proved that brilliance isn't bound by color, only by determination. If stories like this inspire you, hit like and share this video, and subscribe to Black Business Files. Because these aren't just business stories, they're survival stories that drive history forward.